Hey, deserving listeners, it's time for me to react to your comments from my videos from last week. Let's get to it. By the way, I have a slight stuffy nose. I tested negative for COVID, so I think it's just like a regular minor cold with a lot of stuff in my face. I think I'm on the downside of the curve, though. Darcy and Stacy videos. Karina says, "Oh, Georgie just broke my heart." He says, "This is why I don't open up. I understand Georgie far too well. I just want to give him a hug." Yeah. May Lynn says, Darcy made this man homeless and tossed him to the curb. Just imagine if an older man did this to a younger, impoverished woman. Yeah. Well, we can, to some extent. That's happened before on the show. At least, well, maybe not exactly like this, but anyway. Ashley says, "It seems like Darcy's love language is gift-giving and romantic gestures, and Darcy equates those things with actual love. Georgie hasn't done much of that, as he might not have the means to do so at the moment, so she believes that he does not love her. That's why she was so over the moon when Tom made the tiniest of romantic gesture." Yeah, absolutely. I agree. We don't know that for sure, but it certainly looks that way. Renaissance Man says, "Darcy thinks that breaking up with a man, even a good man who loves her, makes her a strong woman." Yeah, I mean, she's resorting, I think, to that, pattern of, I'm a strong woman, I don't deserve this. He doesn't see how strong I am. I'm going to show him how strong I am. I think that's a mode she goes into out of a defense. It's just been, if we're seeing an accurate depiction of a pattern, it is extremely interesting to watch someone distort something that is so difficult to distort, right? That if we're seeing it accurately, which we don't know, we are seeing someone completely see something that is not there in a significant, romantic significant other relationship. And we all do this, and I talk about it often, distortions based on transference and displacement and relational traumas being recreated. But we've never seen an example that was this distorted, this without basis, this without any kind of justification. And it just really highlights how humans are. I mean, we all do this. She's just showing an extreme example of it, I think. Hugo says, "I can see Darcy going to therapy and being reinforced in her belief that everyone is victimizing her. Maybe it'd be good for her to get a therapist who would show her the part she contributes to the failure of her relationships." Yeah, absolutely. Some therapists, I'm just going to say it, well, let's just say they wouldn't be very good for Darcy. And they would absolutely just reinforce the belief that she's never wrong and she's strong as a woman. And of course she is. She deserves to have rights and to have people treat her well. But given her perspective and given how distorted she is, and given the fact that, at least on the show, she doesn't take responsibility for anything, and she would never offer up in therapy, I don't think. Maybe there's something wrong with the way that I see things, or maybe I'm distorted. Maybe help me with that. Unless she volunteered that, which it'd be hard to imagine, the therapist would have to introduce that themselves, which would threaten the relationship with her. And not every therapist, one, has the skills to see or do that. And some therapists just, I don't know, that's all I'll say. They're probably not very helpful to her. So yeah, she would have to find someone particular. Laura says, "Hi, I'm a twin here. In my opinion and experience, twins are often treated like a unit, which can make them feel like half of a person. Many people would compare my twin and I side by side to figure out whose nose was bigger, etc. I can definitely understand how twins could feel competitive with each other after being treated that way." That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. That from an early age, if you're constantly being compared to each other, who's prettier, who's stronger, who's funnier, that you would be in extreme competition with each other. And maybe as a way of mitigating that competition, they agreed they would always do everything the same. They would dress the same plastic surgery procedures, same marriage at the same time, same amount of children, get divorced at the same time. And that might be I mean, there's certainly a lot of evidence of that, right? We've seen Stacy, as she starts to seek to get pregnant, she's terrified of how Darcy will react. Darcy seemed to react fine to that, to her credit. Patricia says, Darcy's problems seem to be so deeply rooted that it would take years of therapy to untangle them. Georgie, at least, shows remorse and identifies what he could or might have done differently. Yeah, absolutely. Citizen says, my goal for this year is to get my own reality show so Dr. Hana can give me some advice by reacting to it. There's a lot of layers and backstory. TLC, give me a call. Yeah. I don't know if someone else emailed in or commented something along those lines, but I thought that was funny. Like, because, some people will want to hire me as their therapist, and, my practice has been full for a long time. Yeah, I don't know if everyone has an accurate idea of my abilities as a therapist. I'm guessing that some people think of me as a much better therapist than I actually am. I mean, I'd like to think that I'm pretty good at my job. I've been doing it for 25 years, but I don't know if I'm as good as maybe some people think that I am, or as of a miracle worker, maybe that people think. But anyway, and some... I was thinking, well, if you wanted me to comment on you, get on a reality TV show, because, I'll comment on you in that way, because I seem to always have room for that. Gnome says, Stephen and Alina video. Gnome says, one thing that could be happening is that Stephen knows he is being filmed and his actions will be broadcast to the world, including his church leaders. Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. That, of course, he knows that he's being filmed, and that his church leaders will see this, and that maybe he is more flexible about sleeping in the same place as Alina as he lets on TV. Too Cute says, good old Too Cute Puppies says, if he can't control himself around her, I don't think I'd trust him at a hostel either, especially after he's demonstrated how impulsive he is. Yeah, this is something I'm seeing in the comments, and I've been thinking about, and something I hadn't really considered, but obviously could be a thing. I think what people might be reacting to, sorry about the stuffiness, it could just be allergies too, I don't know. Anyway, is the way that he talks. The way I was interpreting it was over here, which was that he's attracted to his girlfriend. He wants to have sex with her. She wants to have sex with him. And she isn't under strict guidelines, religious-wise, to not have sex with him. She might have even said behind closed doors that, she wants to have sex when they're in Turkey. And for him, he doesn't want to. Or he wants to, his body wants to, let's say, shall we say, but his religious mind doesn't want to. And so I've been interpreting it as they both want to have sex with each other, they both detect that, but he has to be the gatekeeper because she won't. Who knows? And he's worried that if they are too tempting, that he will give in, and she's okay with having sex with him anyway, right? And that when he talks about, like, I don't know if I can control myself around you, it's more of, you aren't going to be the gatekeeper. I have to be the gatekeeper. And so, and I want to be good for my religion. And, it's just a very common Mormon thing and, evangelical Christian thing. And so that's the way I was interpreting it. But looked at another way, which people have been wondering and reacting to, is when he says he can't control himself, is he saying that he is so compulsive about sexual motivation that he might even harm her or assault her sexually because of personal experience, or he has such intense motivation regardless of his goals and he knows through experience that he can't control himself sexually around other people. He will just do things. He will, in the same way that someone with a temper won't want to get into a fight because they don't know what they're going to do physically. They're like, I have a temper. I need to, avoid getting into a verbal fight with someone because I might like beat someone's head to a pulp. So if that's what we're talking about with Stephen, then huge yikes there, because basically what he's saying is I have an inner, I don't know, I don't want to put the word to it because I don't know if YouTube will flag me, but I have an inner sexual assault person, a criminal, someone who doesn't care about other people's boundaries. And unless I, use strict, fencing around that part of me, I will assault someone else, regardless of whether or not they want to have sex with me or not. If that's what he's talking about, then whoa. And I've been assuming it's this other, but some people have been telling me that they smell this other thing. And I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Haley says, this is called missionary dating, when someone dates someone and has wishful thinking about being able to convert them. That's funny, missionary dating. Missionary dating, but not missionary. Anyway, Corey and Evelyn video. Melanie says, quoting me, I keep waiting. So apparently I said, I keep waiting for Evelyn to show some kind of compassion, some kind of love for him, some kind of like for him. And then Melanie says, exactly. It's very frustrating and infuriating to watch her being a total jerk with Corey and to watch him having the extreme patience that he has. Yeah, there's a certain amount of jerk face-ness going on. By the way, don't be a jerk face. You can get this shirt, link below. Bubbles says, makes me sad because I see myself in Corey. Low self-worth made me put up with a lot of shit when I definitely deserved better. I believe in you, Corey. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you went through that, Bubbles. Addie says, I know that Corey is the one being treated badly here, but there's something about the way he behaves that triggers me. He doesn't seem to be very smart and is too weak to even stand up for himself. He is clearly upset and has the right to be, but he still lets her walk all over him. I can't stand the way he lets her push him around. Yeah, I've seen some people being very triggered by what they're perceiving as his weakness. On one hand, he's weak. There's something wrong with him. On the other hand, he's a nice guy who's in love. And he doesn't take those kinds of prideful actions. Like, you're not going to do that to me. It's a really kind of an immature way of seeing life. When you're mistreated and you take the high road, you're just like, well, they must have been having, sorry, that sounded funny. That was my keyboard. I didn't want people to think something else happened. Not there's anything wrong with that, because, you do what you got to do, I suppose. But anyway, some people seem to be very triggered by him, and or they will attack him, call him names. And I don't know how, this is my take on it, that from what we've seen, he's a really nice guy. Now, he has his limits, right? When they gave him that soup, you saw a version of it. He's just like, he didn't just take that. He was, pretty upset about it. But what he doesn't do, which is what so many other people do on the show, is when they get hurt, they get angry, and then they get hostile, and they get aggressive. He doesn't do that. That isn't to say that he isn't hurt, because he often is hurt, and he will express that. But because he doesn't get aggressive, because he doesn't get angry, we just have to assume that he just really loves her. And we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. That he's like, well, she treats me like crap, but overall I really love her, and, I really love our relationship. So yeah, I find it interesting that there seems to be this anger at him for being too nice. Now, you could feel bad for him, and you'd be like, come on, dude, stick up for yourself. It's unfair. Yeah, maybe. But on the other hand, what good would happen? Would Evelyn change? I don't think so. So if he's going to make it work with Evelyn, which I think he really, really wants to make it work with her, because I think he's really in love, then this might actually be the only way to make it work. And from the outside, it can seem unfair. But if he is like, well, there are some people, I know a lot of people like this. They're just like, yeah, my spouse is mean sometimes, but I don't take it personally. My spouse has some issues and is insulting to me or puts me down. Now, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that he's emotionally abused, has low self-worth, doesn't feel like he deserves justice, doesn't feel like he deserves to be treated well. And he is allowing it to happen based on that schema. In that case, we would say, come on, dude, you deserve better. Don't believe that you deserve that. So I don't know which one it is. It could just be that he's an extremely patient, nice guy who puts things in perspective, meaning that he doesn't take it personally because he's more mature, wiser than that. As an example, you're on the bus and you see someone that's really agitated and they start yelling at you because you're sitting in their seat, even though you just sat down in some random seat. And you don't take it personally, hopefully. You're just like, oh, this person is having a bad day or they're confused, but I'm not gonna get angry about it because there's something wrong with how they're thinking about this. So we all can do that, but it's harder with our spouses, but it really shouldn't be. And if you can, one of the most superior belief systems you can have is when people are hurting my feelings, it's not about me, it's about them. They are hurt. There's something going on with them. And I have enough self-esteem. So I guess that's the question, is how much self-esteem? Because if he has a good amount of self-esteem, he might actually be taking it because he has enough self-esteem to withstand it and not be convinced that there's something wrong with him based on the way that he's being treated. But if he has low self-esteem, then he doesn't believe he deserves any better. And then we would say, come on, dude, don't treat yourself that way. Glow says, I have commented on this before here. I am from Ecuador, and in general, people from Ecuador are very warm, kind, inviting, and loving. And it pains me to see this relationship and the way Evelyn acts, as it is so uncommon here in Ecuador. Yeah, I figured. We don't know about this town, though, because we have a sample size of 5 or 6 people. Her parents certainly seem lovely, and the rest of the extended family. But Evelyn and her 2 sisters, Raul. I don't know if I showed the clip of in the town the fishermen dudes who were talking crap behind his back because she cheated on him. Right? It just gives me a bad feeling. So of course we don't want to generalize to the town based on 7 individuals' behavior on a reality TV show, and certainly we don't want to generalize that to Ecuador. But yeah, my assumption was, because I've met people from Ecuador too, and very nice people, a lot nicer than Americans in general, in my experience. Kenny and Armando video. Creeds says, as much as these 2 have dealt with in life, they are so well adjusted. Regarding spoiling children after death, so I was wondering if Armando was spoiling his daughter after the death of the mother. Regarding spoiling children after death, my friend lost a child, and the amount of stuff her surviving child got away with that year was a little horrifying, to be honest. We all knew why, but it was so hard to watch and even harder to feel like you have any right to intervene. Grief sucks. Yeah. You have the right to the right to intervene. You have absolutely, I believe, the right to say something to the parent. Just be like, so, I know why you're doing it, but it's going a little far, and it's just my observation. You can be kind, don't be judgmental. The other thing is generally speaking, whenever you have a critical thought about someone else's parenting, assume you have no idea what's going on. I just want to say that whenever you are judging other people's parenting, assume you know nothing, because 99 times out of 100, the judgments that people think, particularly the ones that they say to other parents based on a little bit, even if it's like your sibling and you're, frequently in contact with, unless you live with them, which of course you would have some right to say something, but if you only see them every once in a while, assume that you really just don't know what's going on. Now, you could be right, or you could be onto something with your observation of someone else's parenting. But so often, I have heard people say things, and I'll think, so what happens is, so often, is there's 2 things that are going on that provoke these erroneously judgmental ideas and statements to parents. One is that well, there's a number of different premises. Let me see if I can rattle off a bunch. One idea is that anytime you see a kid that is doing something repetitively that is annoying in some way, it's the parent's fault. That is not always true. You can be a perfect parent, and a child can still have multiple repetitive, annoying behaviors that other people can witness. So just know that. The other thing is that the way that they are not parenting the way I parent, therefore they are parenting badly. That's an assumption that a lot of people have. You might be very proud of the fact that you raised, well-behaved kids, and you believe that your system worked. And when anyone is not doing your system, or even if they don't have well-behaved kids, you just assume they're not using your system, and you think, of course, if you just use my system, everything will work. Number 3, if you had well-behaved kids, relatively, you assume it's because of your parenting. But it could have been the genetics and the disposition and the way that you just kind of randomly fit together as parent and child. And your child you might actually have a terrible parenting system, or at least a suboptimal parenting system, but your kid persevered anyway and is well-behaved anyway. So don't assume because you have good kids, it's because of your parenting. It's possible that it's just genetics or some other kind of thing that had really nothing to do with your parenting style. Another reason is that when we see kids misbehaving, it's anxiety provoking to watch, particularly if it's of a particular type of misbehavior, like crying or whining and it causes anxiety in the observer. And so we want it to stop, but we don't know what to do because we can't yell at the kid. Now, in other societies, they will, by the way. And when I was growing up, they would. Other adults would just, come at me, and my parents would be like, yeah, well, you deserved it. You're being annoying at McDonald's. Someone else is going to start yelling at you. Today's world. You can't do anything. So what do? Well, you yell at the parents, or at least you think negative, judgmental things about the parents. The parents become the scapegoat for your anxiety. And so the first thing you want to do is be like, okay, this kid's doing things that are provoking me. I need to calm down. It's them. It's their problem. It's not mine. So anyway, there's a lot of reasons why we will have what I believe to be misguided, judgmental ideas and statements towards parents. So everyone just needs to slow down. If you care, you can go to the parents and be like, look, I'm observing something. I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong. This is what I'd be as a therapist. And I'm an expert. I'm a professional helper of parents. And I would still word it this way because it's true. How could I possibly know what's going on a minute-by-minute basis as a casual, occasional, temporary observer, biased observer as well? That I always approached parents that they were the experts. They knew what was going on. Even bad parents are mostly good. That's another thing to remember. Even bad parents are mostly good parents. Unless you're really bad, then all bets are off. Like if you're suffering from drug addiction significantly and that's all you can focus on, or you were massively abused growing up and you're very triggered by your own kids, that kind of thing. Anyway, but bad parents who aren't that bad what I would observe is most of the time they were good parents. It was just occasionally when they didn't know what to do or they would be triggered or something, then they would act poorly, and a lot of behaviors came from that. Anyway, Annie says, Annie is quoting me saying, I was talking about, who was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about how you don't want to spoil children. You don't want to not have any rules with children because, quote, this is what I said, they have no ability to impose limits on themselves with eating or with spending. And so they're 35 years old and they've been extremely self-destructive because they don't have this mechanism, end of quote. So apparently I said that, which, I would agree with. I agree with myself. And Annie says, can you not call me out directly on the show, please, Dr. Honda? Sheesh. Wait, what? So are you 35 years old and you are self-destructive and you can't impose limits on yourself because of eating and spending? If that's true, therapy can't help. It's super ego development. You want to seek out someone for that. Or changes in schemas regarding limits. Some people, because they didn't have limits imposed on them and they were spoiled, they have this almost phobia about limits. They believe that, it's sort of like one way to see it is that when we're 3, we hate limits. Limits seem very scary to us. We also want limits, by the way. Kids want limits. Everyone wants limits, regardless of age. But we're also kind of scared. It's like, well, what if I go to bed, what if my parents impose this go to bedtime and something really fun happens that I'm not there for, FOMO essentially. And so but as a kid, you have limits and limits and limits, and you learn that, look, you might miss out on something, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But if you never experience that, and you're always allowed to push back on the limits, then you never know what it's like to miss out on something. And that's just one example of a worry about a limit being imposed. And so as an adult, you can have this schema that limits will, if you impose any kind of limit on yourself, that something horrible will happen. It's a fear that people have, which isn't rational, but it can be one of the reasons why people can suffer from a lot of self-destruction and lack of boundaries for their own behavior. Anyway, Danielle and Mohammed video. Rogue says, the regression, when you made the point about regression with Danielle, it makes so much sense and does present a different lens to see them. Watching Danielle always made me so uncomfortable. It makes sense now. Yeah, Danielle, who knows, seems to regress under stress, and we all will regress under stress, but she seems to regress to that of a 2-year-old child, which either points to lack of other defenses, lack of ego strength, or lots of stress in that situation, or lots of trauma that happened when she was very young. But I don't know. Gemini says, just to add some perspective, I am from an Arab American culture, so I'm somewhat familiar with Muhammad. He seems to be using culture as an excuse not to admit the truth that he doesn't actually love Danielle. Just my 2 cents. Interesting. Happy says, my boyfriend and I use a lot of baby talk. I always found it cringy until I got into a happy relationship. I never thought of it as unhealthy. We are otherwise very mature. Is it always a bad thing? End of comment. Well, Happy, no, baby talk is fine. Did I say it was a bad thing? Because if I did, that's wrong. Baby talk is fine. A lot of couples will, behind closed doors, have a lot of particular talk, let's just say. And a lot of it can be quote unquote baby talk. There are a lot of reasons for this. Our first loving relationships were when we were babies. Maybe when we had younger siblings, we also had a lot of baby talk with our younger sibling, and there was a lot of love there with our own kids. And so the baby, that's why we call people baby. Why? Just think about how weird it is. We have a word for an infant, which is baby, right? That's a baby child, little baby. But so many songs and so many, people, hey babe, hey, look at that beautiful baby. Oh my God, baby, love me all night long. We use this word. It's bizarre when you think about it. We're calling our romantic and, lust objects a 6-month-old human being. Why do we do it? But we do. There's so many examples of how the way that we are in terms of love and lust and attachment is so related to early infant attachments, because we all went through that, or we all longed for that, or we all longed to go back there because it felt so all-encompassing when we were 6 months old and we had at least, optimal parenting or good enough parenting. The love that we felt from our parents, they fed us, they were there for us, they held us, we just felt like they could do anything for us. And so that kind of love is a template that we are frequently referencing in our romantic relationship. Why do we kiss? It's reminiscent of suckling. Now, I can't know this for sure, but it seems rational. Hard to say, but it seems very likely that these are all kind of connected. And so when we're in a romantic relationship and we have baby talk, it is, just part and parcel to all that. So it's not a bad thing. It's with Danielle and Mohammed, what we see on screen is not like their baby talk behind closed doors. We see Danielle at best, even when she's not stressed out, she has the mentality of a child often. And I don't know what that is. Now, I can't even know if that's true or not. I can't know if I'm seeing her accurately. I can't know if I'm biased. I can't know if we're only seeing a certain version of her on the camera. I don't know. But at best, she seems like a teen, maybe a tween, like a 12-year-old. And then when she's stressed, she goes to like that of a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. So, and that's not a bad thing. That just indicates difficulty and trauma and the need for development. And it's a massive aggravation to their relationship, because Muhammad isn't wanting her to act that way, I don't think, and it interferes with their relationship, and it interferes with Danielle's ability to think like an adult, to be able to say, okay, what's the best course of action here, or to have the resources. I don't know. I'm kind of saying a lot about Danielle. I want to very much emphasize that I'm hypothesizing and being tentative about this. What else can I say about Danielle and her childishness? So when people are traumatized, they can sometimes retain a lot of childishness. When people are treated like a child their whole life, then they can, as an adult, be very childish. And it's not a mode that they go into. It literally is who they are. There's a lot of things that need to happen in order for a 5-year-old to mature into a 10-year-old, to mature into a 15-year-old, to mature into a 20-year-old, to mature into a 35-year-old. There's a lot of things that need to happen. You don't just automatically mature. There's a lot of things that have to be shepherded along the way. And if you don't get that shepherding, then you do not mature. And so you can have a 35-year-old woman who has the maturity of a 12-year-old, not because they decided to do that, but because they were usually hindered in their development or something hindered them. So when she exhibits immature baby talk, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people who use baby talk as a way of entering into a lovey mode, consensual lovey mode between two people who otherwise have mature modes that they can engage in so they can think like an adult, because it's important that we are able to think like an adult in the way that I'm talking about. Anyway, am I making sense? I feel like I'm not making sense. All right. I think I will go blow my nose. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself and get vaccinated and wash your hands and wear your mask, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.